about it. Share communication, making preparation, building the foundation. Let's talk about it. Setting up our future, bringing ourselves closer, falling in love deeper. Let's talk about it. Since we have this moment together, relationships grow better with Marriage Talk.
Hey, well, hello, I'm Bishop Kim Brown, and this is my lovely wife of 32 years. We call her here at the church Elder Valerie K. Brown, and we thank you for connecting with Marriage Talk today. We believe that God has called us, anointed us, and graced us to be able to help marriages. In fact, to help your marriage. Not that we've gotten it right, but I think 32 years, in fact, in just a moment, if you ask her, it's been 22 years because I think sometimes she doesn't count the first 10 years. But 32 years, we've been able to live together, love together, do life together, and laugh together. And we believe God has blessed us to be able to share that with you. So thank you for connecting with KW Brown Ministries today. And if you desire more information in the future about how you can continue to grow and be connected and operate in covenant with us, all you have to do is go to kwbrownministries.org. Well, today I'm excited because the day and time that we live in, burnout is becoming so rampant. The divorce rate is so high. And what I told somebody the other day, I was talking to someone, we were doing some marriage counseling. And unfortunately, when they came in to talk, it was an inferno. The house was on fire, flames were coming out of the window, and they were giving me some details, and I told them, look, you should have come in here when you smell smoke,
right,
when the smoke detector was going off.
Yeah.
But instead, by the time they got in here, you know, it was a 3-alarm fire.
Okay.
So I think sometimes, I know you're sitting there right now and you're saying, okay, I connected today to talk about marriage, and he's talking about burnout. Well, what we've learned, in fact, what I've recently learned, Elder, is that there is something called marriage burnout. Mm-hmm. It works the same way as burnout.
Okay.
You know, I think it's so easy to get burned out. In fact, most people that get burned out many times don't even know they're burned out, and they start pointing to other issues, and that's not the real issue.
Well, I know when we talk about burnout, you know, most people will talk about career burnout or job burnout, and they recognize it as such because when they wake up in the morning, they
don't feel like going to work.
They be just like, I don't feel like going up in here today. Or they get there and they be like, oh, is it 5 o'clock yet? So we can readily identify, I guess, the symptoms of other types of burnout. But when we start to talk about marriage burnout or marital burnout, you know, what is that like? That's depression, or that's like, I mean, what? Do you wake up and say, I don't want to be married anymore?
Well,
I mean,
that's interesting because I think the symptoms transfer.
Okay. So
you just gave a major connectivity to burnout and marriage burnout.
Okay.
I think those symptoms transfer. So go back to your example. When I'm working in my career and I'm burned out, I don't know if all the time I think I know I'm burned out.
Okay.
But I don't necessarily recognize or acknowledge that I'm burned out. I think
in marriage or just in general?
Well, let's deal with it in general first.
Okay, all right.
I think what we'll think is I'm just fatigued, I'm tired.
That's right.
You'll hear people saying I'm just tired.
I'm tired.
Well, the bottom line is when you started the job, there was a mechanism emotionally that would trigger that even if you were physically tired.
I was excited, or I liked it.
Right,
I mean,
you got up, the challenge of the new job,
correct,
the new relationships, the new assignment. This is the job that I prayed for.
Right.
And then all of a sudden now you described it so eloquently. It's 7 o'clock, that alarm clock goes off, 6 o'clock, whatever it is, and you're like, oh my God, I got to go to work again. And so the reality is I think sometimes we misdiagnose burnout, period.
Okay, all right.
And we start thinking it's fatigue and things like that. And that's why people quit their job. And then they find out over here at the new job, they got the same stuff because it was not the job.
Okay.
It was the burnout.
All right.
Well, I think now let's transport that into marriage.
All right.
There's something called marital burnout or marriage burnout. It works the same way. You know, when you first got married, think about this. You could work 8 hours, come home, get on the phone, and you'd be saying stuff like, yeah, I gotta go. You hang up. No, you hang up. No, you hang up first. No, you hang up first. And you've been on the phone for 2 hours talking. Well, you were still tired when you got home. And now all of a sudden, because of life and not diagnosing life, the same symptoms exist. So you start to feel the same way in marital burnout as you would in career burnout or anything else. Things that you used to enjoy, things like that, I think are no longer as fulfilling. And so there are literally some symptoms of burnout.
Okay.
And one of the symptoms of burnout, you know, we don't even have it listed, but you just alluded to the fact that things that you used to enjoy, you don't enjoy as much anymore. I don't know if it's you don't enjoy them. It's because you're burned out that you don't enjoy them.
Well, it just takes so much effort.
Right. But it took that same amount of effort.
Right. I mean, but that's what I'm saying. I think that's why they say it's not fulfilling.
Right.
It's because when you measure it against the effort that's involved,
Right.
it's like, is that even worth it?
Right.
But most of the time, that's probably, like you say, a mental state or carryover
Absolutely.
of something else.
Well, I think the number one thing that any burnout does, whether it's corporate, secular, career burnout, or marital burnout, I think the reality is burnout always affects your mental state.
Okay.
You know, now that doesn't mean it can't affect your physical, you know, and you know, I don't want to turn this into Bible study. As your mind goes, everything else goes. Right. As a man thinketh, so is he. So I think the first place it deals with is your mind, and then that erodes into emotions, health, finances. I think that, you know, sometimes it's because, you know, one of the things that I've always heard is, and we have it listed today, that you get a sense of helplessness and loss of direction. So, you know, it's really hard to understand that unless you deal with it through mental. I don't know where I'm going. Well, I think, and I think some of this is important too, Elder. I think we don't think about burnout through this lens. Age. You know, when I was younger, I just had more energy. And I think you had more mental fortitude that you could bounce or balance multiple balls in the air. So when I look at lack of direction or sense of helplessness, I think we fool ourselves sometimes that, you know, I remember, man, when we first got married 32 years ago, you were working as a practicing CPA. You were going to school. We had a newborn, and you were running a practice that was growing.
But I think maybe that's direction. I mean, I
Right.
think at that stage in our life, we knew where we were headed and where we were going.
Okay.
So if you're trying to relate that to age, then are we saying the older you are or the longer you've been married, maybe your aspirations or goals are no longer there?
Yeah.
You don't have any new ones?
That's
or
good.
you see, I don't want to do it because it takes too much effort, or I've already accomplished everything now. So is that
I think
where
it's a
maybe
little bit
loss
of all of it.
direction?
Well, I think a little bit of all of it. I think number one, when you get older, when you're young, you're trying to run somewhere.
Absolutely. I know
And
exactly
then-
where I'm going.
right.
Hopefully.
Hopefully, well,
Yeah.
a lot of people don't, but you're running somewhere, and many times by the time you get to our age, 32 years in, you sometimes feel like, am I going to ever get there?
Okay.
So I think that causes burnout because you're churning. You know, I think life sometimes is we're the hamster
Right.
on the little wheel, and we're running, and we don't see ourselves getting anywhere, or where we thought we were going is not where we ended up.
Okay.
So you know, that's what I think as far as a lack
So
of
that's
direction.
what would cause you to have a burnout.
Yeah, because you're
opposed
constantly
to
trying to get there, and what
celebrating.
we don't realize is there is not a physical space. I don't think you ever get there. I think it ultimately keeps changing. It's like as soon as you think you get there, and we say this all the time, we went to bed at 30 and woke up at 60.
Yeah.
And so what we were chasing at 30, we're not chasing at 60 anymore. But the chase doesn't end.
That's true.
And I think some kind of a way in life, we've been fooled into thinking the chase ends. What was our goals when we were 30 weren't our goals when we were 40.
Oh, absolutely
and weren't our
not.
goals when we were 50. And definitely aren't our goals now that we're 60. So I think sometimes you're so busy not reassessing life that you get burned out because you never take the opportunity to say, man, I can at least check that goal off. And we got there together.
Gotcha.
I think the other thing is a relinquishing of important aspects of life, ministry, marriage, or whatever. Now I understand something about burnout based upon that. I think that there are many people suffer with marital burnout, especially when the children are now grown, because that's the relinquishing of important aspects of our life. My life was driven around parenting. And now that, parenting doesn't stop, but now that my children are grown, I haven't backfilled that void with anything else. Or, retirement. We hear this all the time. I want to ask couples, how do you get burned out in your 60s? Because now life should be decompressing, but it's because we were running so hard with career and all those things, and now that that's off the table, we're back to, what do I do now?
Well, you're lifting up some really hefty things that come off of your plate, or relinquishing of different aspects of your life. But when you said that, I thought about simple things of, I'm tired of cooking.
Right.
I mean, when kids were growing up, I
had to
cooked 3
cook
meals
every
a day.
day.
It was breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And now I'm relinquishing that. I'm tired of cooking.
Right.
And so I know
That's
that there
good.
are, spouses out there on both sides. I am tired of taking my Mondays and I'm paying the bills.
Right.
I am, so that's what I thought
Right.
about when it said relinquishing different aspects. And all of those are still important, grocery shopping, making sure there's food in the house, making sure the bills are paid. I mean, clean, whatever those aspects have been. And I'm sitting here now wondering if I'm talking to myself that maybe I am exhibiting marital burnout, even from that perspective. It doesn't have to be necessarily anything that's impacting you or us, but it's impacting me in terms of those things that I know have been primarily my responsibility. But I'm tired of doing it. So it's like, is that marital burnout?
That's probably marital burnout. I mean, I think one of the things we talked about is to thine own self, be honest. I think, and that's why this segment or session is so important, because so many times we are burned out, but we've not recognized it as burned out or being burned out. We recognized it as I'm tired. But these symptoms are important. You just alluded to probably symptom number 3, procrastination and getting normal work done.
Absolutely. So
you're like, man,
how am I going to fix that though? Because see, then I feel guilty because I know my family got to eat. Everybody like, well, what's for dinner?
Absolutely.
Or I can't not pay the bills because then, because for me, that's a pet peeve because I don't want the creditor to call and So what are you going to do?
We're going to talk about that in the second part of this session. Look, we want to give you some information about KW Brown Ministries, some of the ministry opportunities and offerings that we have. So why don't you check out these announcements and think about whether you're burned out. We'll be back as soon as these announcements are complete.
For 2 years, KW Brown Ministries has been working tirelessly to give you exactly what you need. You've asked for it. Tools for hope, tools for information, tools for inspiration. Stay tuned for October 9th, 2022.
Well, welcome back. We believe that it is definitely our assignment to help you mature in your relationship with your spouse. So please take advantage of all of the opportunities that KW Brown Ministries has been given by God the opportunity to share with you. Just before we ended session 1, Elder, we were talking about procrastination.
Yeah.
And you raised the question, what do we do when you start, you're burned out,
Yeah.
and then the burnout leads to procrastination in normal.
Just don't want to do it anymore.
Right. And I think, and this is a male perspective probably, but I think one thing that I know, I think both of us are tired in life. It's been 32 years. I'm not talking about in marriage. We've been rolling for 32 years.
Absolutely.
So I think one of the ways as a spouse, not just a husband, I can't take the bill paying piece.
No, you can't.
Yeah. We learned that lesson years
We'll be
ago.
worse
So
off.
first thing is you got to know your limitations.
Right.
What you can take and what you can
But
relinquish.
therein lies the problem.
Right.
I'm
But
tired, but I know I can't give it to you.
No, you
so
can't
what
give
am
me
I
that. But you said some other thing. You said I'm
Okay.
tired of cooking.
Yes.
And I'm tired of grocery shopping.
Yeah.
I can handle taking some of that though.
Yes. And you have.
And I have. So I'll try to go to the grocery store. It gets kind of interesting because she's a coffee drinker and she'll put down coffee and I'm not a coffee drinker. So, I am driven by media when it comes to coffee. Good to last drop. Some of y'all too young to even know what that is, Maxwell House. But so when I get into the coffee aisle,
thousands of choices.
oh my God, half decaf, this kind of decaf, flavored coffee.
Right.
But I think the way you deal with procrastination is where I was going. Number one, you've got to communicate to your spouse. Look, I'm tired. And I'm tired of paying these bills. And now there's a difference. Mm-hmm. If you're tired of paying the bills because we don't have our finances in order.
Which is not the case.
That's another
Absolutely. Another whole
journey
discussion.
you got to go down.
Yeah.
In our case, that's not the problem. It's the
Right.
responsibility of doing it.
Yes.
Well, then the reality is you communicate that. As a spouse, it becomes our responsibility to say, whether we can for a season or anything else, take that. I can't take that just because of the level of intellect or experience it takes in this season to do that.
Yeah.
But what I can do is go to the grocery store. I can take some cooking responsibilities, or even if I don't cook. Now, once again, I don't want to bleed over into
Right.
finances.
Absolutely.
You can't go eat out every night.
No.
And that's not in
No.
your budget.
Right.
So, that's
Absolutely.
another
That's correct.
segment.
That's correct.
But I can say I'll be responsible for dinner, whether it's me picking up something to cook or me doing the grocery shopping. You've got to recognize. So I think the way you deal with procrastination is communicate it and then recognize it. The other person has to recognize it.
Okay. All right.
Because if you're not, that leads, and that's what you just said, you went there, it leads to disillusionment
Right.
with yourself and others because you just said, man, I want to do this, but then I start feeling guilty.
Right.
There should not be guilt
Right.
associated with that. That's the emotional game that, mind, life plays on us. The reality is we're a partnership. So we wanted to be able to share with you today in this session, 7 habits or some healthy habits
Okay.
to help us deal with marriage burnout. One of them, we just kind of alluded to it vicariously, accountability in one's work and personal relationships. In other words, you got to say it. You got to say, look, I'm tired.
Right.
I'm burned out.
Yeah.
I need this. And well, let me say it another way. Sometimes you don't have to say it. You've got to be sensitive to recognizing it. Now we do know the best communication is not nonverbal communication. So there's nothing that beats articulating it.
Correct.
But when your spouse is not clicking on all cylinders or when the relationship is not clicking on all cylinders. Just simply have a self-awareness and a corporate awareness, a couple awareness. And
the other part of that too, 'cause as you're talking, I'm processing as well, since we're using examples from me, is what can I do to fix that?
Right.
I'm sitting here trying to think, okay, so you're tired, so what should I be doing other than that? I don't know.
Well, I think
maybe that's my vacation. Maybe
Absolutely.
that's my getaway. I don't
Right.
know. I'm trying to think
Well,
of
I know
solutions
that. Well,
for...
I think one of them is, once again, to thine own self be true. You know where you are.
Yeah.
Once you articulate where you are, there is a dual responsibility.
Okay.
Yes. Once you articulate where you are, I think when I say dual responsibility, Your spouse has to take some ownership in that as well, yes. But they are not the only person. You've got to take some personal ownership in that.
Right.
I mean, you are by nature, the way you are wired, the way many people are wired, you are a very intentional, get it done, put this pressure on yourself type person.
Right.
At this stage, especially, if we get it done tomorrow, it's okay. But I think for you,
right.
you got a legal pad full of, I got to get this done.
That's correct.
Well, for me, my legal pad is I got to get this done before the Lord calls me home. Your legal pad is I got to get this done before today at 6 o'clock. Well, I don't have to get it done before today at 6 o'clock.
That's right.
So when I say dual responsibility, no one can fix you.
That's right. That's correct.
But that doesn't mean that there isn't some spousal responsibility.
Well, I talk to myself sometimes, and I'm not crazy, but I will say, girl, ain't nobody putting pressure on you to get this stuff done. Why are you stressing? And so I do have to talk to myself, and so I'm telling y'all, talking to yourself is not bad, to make yourself understand that there's self-accountability for that.
Which is the second habit. Repeatedly letting go and let God lead. Man, sometimes you just got to say,
that's right.
I've reached my threshold. And you will hear me say it. I have reached and I say it in the office.
Yes, you do.
I say it everywhere. I have reached my emotional threshold. I am done.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why I do that is because I don't process at that point as effectively as you. You can be at your threshold and still maintain a quality personality.
Sometimes.
I get to that threshold, you don't want to be around me. So that's kind of like me firing my shot up. I'm putting my red flare up. I just pulled a flare gun out and I shot it in the sky to let you know, look.
That's it.
I'm in the red zone now, so you don't want to mess with me anymore. But I think all of us have to learn now. Once again, you can't just say let go. So in fact, let me help people that are watching it. Let go does not mean giving up.
Right.
Let go means reprocessing my goals and my time and my strategy.
I think time management is one of that too.
Right.
Understanding and recognizing that you don't have to get it all done
Absolutely.
today. Yeah.
Because there are some things, your child got a project due tomorrow. You can't let that go.
Right.
But what you can do is, and I think sometimes we say this all the time, I like watching Leave It to Beaver. Life does not work like Leave It to Beaver. I mean, you remember, we'll be watching those segments and they wake up 3 o'clock in the morning because Beaver and them got a stray goat in the yard or something like that. And June's hair is done, her makeup is done. They get out of the bed. She looked just like she did at 11 o'clock during the day. Well, it doesn't work that way. You got to be able to negotiate life and say, here's what is a non-negotiable right now. You got a 3-year-old. You can't put the 3-year-old on the back. But what you can do, and we see this all the time with parents, what you can do is plan a vacation without the children or something like that. So I think you got to decide to let go and let God lead. You got to have accountability in one's work and personal relationship. You got to have some structured prayer time. What's amazing is, and when I say prayer time, Elder, I'm not talking about you got to be the next evangelist.
In the closet for an hour.
Yeah, and once again, I am not trying to throw in the shade at anybody. If you can go sit in the closet for an hour, praise God. Thank God for you. That's just not the way my life works. First of all, I don't want to sit in the closet. That's not going to be a productive moment with me and God. But I think you've got to always evaluate, where am I spiritually? That's what it means. And once again, it doesn't mean it's got to be morning, it's got to be evening. What I've learned is a lot of times the burnout is because you and God not having your time. His grace is not sufficient. You're not giving God time to produce in you a mentality that enables you to do that. This next one, I think you're better at this than me, a healthy sense of self.
What do you mean by that?
I think a healthy sense of self is, so many times the reason why people are burned out, and men especially, is because we do self-examination based upon what we do. In other words, if you ask a man builds his quality based upon his job and the activities that he does. That doesn't mean I'm a better man because I go to work every day. I can go to work every day and be an explosion waiting to happen. your value as a person should not be defined by what you do.
Oh, no, absolutely
And so
not. Yeah,
men
absolutely not.
specifically get burned out because if my value is in what I do, I do so much. That's why men, anytime couples have a disagreement, the first thing men go to is, look where I have you living. I go to work every day. I'm out there putting up with the man every day. That's because that's how they define or do self-expression.
Right.
My job is not who I am. That's what I do. That's why, even in ministry, that's why so many pastors can't retire. I'm really talking to myself now, because you've been consumed by an unhealthy self-identity. So a sense of self, low self-esteem. I really think people who don't have a high self-worth sometimes burn out easier than people who do. And one of the reasons why I say that is because I'm so busy trying to prove who I am that I'm this hamster on this little wheel. I'm going to show y'all I can do this. I'm going to show y'all I am somebody.
That's correct.
And that causes you to get burned out.
I agree with
Even
that,
in marriage. Man, if you always, I'm going to prove to you I'm a good husband. I'm going to prove to you I'm a good wife. Well, you're going to keep working yourself to death and you're going to end up burning out.
Yeah, that's good.
This is a neat one, self-development. I think people get burned out in their marriage simply because, one of the reasons why, Elder, is because marriage should not cause you to lose your identity. You got to continue to grow as a person, yourself. I grow as a person myself, and we grow together. But too many times in marriage, when you stop growing, it lends itself to burnout. And when I'm feeding myself and I'm developing myself, I think that kind of helps prevent me from going over the edge with burnout.
That's good. That's really good.
Yeah, I think that's important. And then lastly, clearly define expectations. I think we get burned out because, for me, this is where I am. In our relationship, you got to understand, I didn't come to the relationship needing dinner every day to be cooked.
Right.
That was never an expectation I put on you. That's an expectation you put on yourself.
Absolutely. That's
based upon, even now, I notice this about you. If it's dinner time and I go in the cupboard and I start looking at food, you take it personal.
That's correct. I know.
You hungry?
That's correct.
So we want you to understand that marital burnout is real. And we want you to understand that you got to do some self-study, because it is not the will of God that you be burned out. It will affect your marriage.
Yes, it will.
We'll see you next time. And we know that today your life is better. Your marriage is better because you had some marriage talk.